Did you guys know that you could win an E-Ride Pro Assess 3.0 just like this one? And today is the second to last day to enter. Tomorrow's January 31st, so you guys got to go click that link right now and win yourself a brand new E-moto. Get entered now, guys. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this one because this bike is epic. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Talaria Boys channel. If you are new here, this is a great place to be if you are entering the E-moto market or if you're looking to purchase a bike. Today we're going to be comparing and reviewing the E-Ride Pro Assess 2.0 versus the new 3.0 model. As you guys can see, these bikes look almost identical, but there are a ton of differences. So if you are looking to purchase one of these bikes, this is going to be a great video because we're going to rank each bike within 17 different categories, tally up the points, and really dive in to compare them so you guys know what is going to be the better bike for you. Let's get into it. Let me explain how these points are going to work. Every category has a certain amount of points attached to it. Some have 1 point and some have 2 points. The more heavily weighted categories are the bigger differences that we think are more important, and those will get 2 points. Those are the things that are a major upgrade from the previous model. Our first category is price. The E-Ride Pro Assess 3.0 comes in at $5,000. And the 2.0 comes in at $4,400. It used to be more expensive, but it has now been price dropped since the new 3.0 has come out, but these models are both still for sale. So the point is going to go to the 2.0 for being less expensive. Our next category is battery sizes. Now, both of these bikes have a 72-volt battery, but they have different capacities. The 2.0 is rocking 40 amp hours, and then the 3.0 is rocking 50 amp hours. So that is a 25% increase on the 3.0. So we're going to give this bike 2 points because that's an absolute major difference when you're out riding the bikes. That equates to a ton more range. Our next category is going to be power throughout the battery range. This is one that we get asked a lot about because some bikes really limit you as the batteries get lower in capacity, like as your percentage gets to 20%, 15%, 10%. Some bikes limit power more than others. E-Ride was a little bit known for doing this on their first generation bikes, but I am happy to share that it has really since been fixed. We haven't seen that issue with the 2.0 or the 3.0 models. So both these bikes are going to get a draw in this category because they really sustain plenty of power throughout the battery range. They only slow down when you're getting really close to being completely dead. So both bikes will get a point for the tie. Our next category is weight, and although these bikes look very much the same, there's a big difference in the weights. This bike weighs 144 pounds on our hanging scale in totally stock form. The 3.0 weighs 163 pounds on the same hanging scale, totally stock. So where's that weight coming from? For one, the larger capacity battery on the 3.0 weighs a lot more. These tires also weigh more front and back. This front suspension fork weighs quite a bit more because it feels better, and we'll get to that in a suspension specific category. This motor is also heavier and beefier and more robust. It also has a 428 chain instead of a 420 chain. It's more metal, it's more robust, it's heavier. So it's things like that that are going to really just add up the weight slowly, over multiple different things. Also the brakes are beefier, and we'll get to that in the brake category. So with that, I don't think this bike is necessarily too heavy though. Even though it's almost a 20-pound difference, and you can tell when you ride it, I think they made all the right improvements on the bike, and the weight is kind of a byproduct of that. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. But we are going to give the point to the 2.0 because it is lighter. Our next category is build quality. Now, we're usually doing these comparisons with bike models from two different manufacturers, and so this has a little bit more discussion. But E-Ride Pro has decent build quality. They're not the best in the E-moto industry, in my opinion, but they also haven't been around for very long, and they're evolving very quickly. But I don't see a major difference of improvement coming up to the 3.0 versus the older model. So we're going to give both these bikes a draw on build quality and just give them both a point for having decent build quality. Our next category is headlights, and this one's super easy because both bikes come with the same headlight, and it's a good headlight. It's this light bar like you see on the 2.0. Both bikes also have a built-in headlight kill switch to turn it on and off. The headlight you see here on the 3.0 has been upgraded, but normally it comes with the exact same light bar. So we're going to give both bikes a point for having decent headlights. Our next category is worth 2 points, and that is the power category. This is a big one because why do you buy E-motos? You want power, you want to have fun. The 2.0 came with 12 kilowatts of peak power, although we always felt like it was less than that. We always felt like it was more like 10.5 or 11 kilowatts with all the bikes we compared it with and did drag races against. So now the 3.0 has 16 kilowatts of peak power, and it really feels like 16. This bike has way more torque, way faster acceleration, and all around just feels way faster than the 2.0. So it is going to get 2 points. It's a good thing you guys are watching this video right now, because tomorrow, January 31st, is the absolute last day that you can enter to win our E-Ride Pro SS 3.0 giveaway. All you've got to do is click that link down in our video description where you can head on over to our website and enter for free. And today we're doing 25 times bonus entries. And while you're there, be sure and pick up some of our Talaria Boys merch. We've got hats, hoodies, and t-shirts, and any E-moto parts that are bought on our website today are going to get you 25 times the bonus entries. Go get entered right now before it's too late. Our next category is one that is very similar on each bike, but the 3.0 does have a few extra added features in, and that is displays, buttons, modes, and things. On the 2.0, we have a large center display. We have a headlight button off to the right next to our throttle. There are no buttons on the throttle. And then on the left here, we have our sport mode, eco mode switch. Our regen is off 1 and 2 positions. We have our horn and our turbo button. Now on the 2.0, the turbo button doesn't really work. Unless you're in eco mode, it basically puts you into sport for 10 seconds, but sport has all the power. Turbo doesn't actually do anything. If we move on over to the 3.0, we have the same large center display. However, we now have temperatures of our battery, motor, and controller, which I absolutely love. They show you right on the center screen there. We still have the same sport and eco mode switch on the left, our same off, level 1 and level 2 for regen, and now we have a horn and then reverse. So no turbo button, which is great because nobody uses it, but we got reverse, which is fantastic because reverse is awesome. If you hold that, twist your throttle, you're going to go in reverse slowly. Our headlight button is now built into the throttle right here on the right. And now we have a park button right here on the throttle, which I absolutely love because it's good when you stop, you put your kickstand down or whatever, it puts you into park, or you can just click it into park. So I like the park feature. So the point is going to the 3.0 for the added functionality of park, reverse, and the temperatures in the display. Our next category is top speed, and this is an interesting one because actually our less powerful bike goes faster in this case. The E-Ride 2.0 we have clocked at 60 miles an hour GPS, and that's the quoted speed that they say it's supposed to do. Now our 3.0 is a little bit different story. We have only been able to get this bike to go 54 miles an hour on the same GPS, on the same street, totally stock, both of these bikes. Now it gets to 54 way quicker than this bike gets to 54. This bike just continues to keep going, and this bike feels like it hits an RPM limit, which means I think the power will allow it to go faster. It should go faster, but based on the gearing and the RPMs and what the controller is programmed to, we've only been able to get 54. Now the interesting thing here is that they say this bike is supposed to go 62 miles an hour, but here's where it gets crazy. When we were going 54, it says you're doing 62. So that's what makes me think that it really only is supposed to go 54, and they're kind of lying and saying that it does go 62, because it doesn't make sense. If this bike actually went 62 in reality, the display would say it was going, let's see, that's 8 miles an hour difference, so it would say it was going 70 miles an hour. And that doesn't quite make sense either, because the display just shouldn't be that wrong. So with that being said, we're giving the point to the 2.0 because it's accurate and it's faster than the 3.0 in top speed, not acceleration, of course. Our next category is throttle feel and the tune of the controllers on these bikes. Let's start with the 3.0. When we first got this bike, it was a pre-production bike and the throttle didn't feel that good in our opinions, but I'm happy to say that this production model feels way better and way smoother on the throttle. The one thing I will add is that on the 3.0, this bike has enough power and enough torque to get you in trouble. And I wish they would have done 3 different drive modes like the Talaria MX-5 has. You know, something like Eco Drive and Sport or Eco Sport and Race that really gives you like a middle power level. Because right now we got Eco mode, it's got like 4 kilowatts and Sport's got like 16. So it's a pretty big difference. On the 2.0, we have Eco Mode and Sport still, and this bike I think feels very similar to this throttle feel, just with less power. But I really wish they did that 3.0 with a middle tune that's about as powerful as this bike in Sport. I think that would make a lot of sense. So we're gonna give both these bikes a draw because both throttles feel great. Our next category is suspension, and in my opinion, this is a 2-point category because there's a big difference here. The E-Ride 2.0, we were really disappointed in the stock suspension. It felt good for about 50 miles, and then oftentimes these front forks would just blow up. The seals would leak oil, they would cavitate, they just felt collapsed, they would make clicking sounds. They just are not a good product, and we've owned, I think, 3 or 4 sets now, and we blew up every single one within a couple hundred miles, even just on our casual riding bikes. The rear shock wasn't half bad, but it wasn't amazing. So the 2.0 kind of lacks in the suspension department, but the 3.0, I'm very happy to say they made major changes. We now have a different brand of suspension. This is now Fast Ace, which is kind of the name brand of Chinese suspension. Our fork feels way more robust and sturdy and has a smoother progression and stroke in it. It just feels significantly better, as does the rear shock. I think this bike now feels really balanced and nice in suspension. Now, one other thing you have to know about suspension is that you really need to get a lot of miles on it to know if something is going to hold up really well. But with Fast Ace, we kind of already know it's going to, and if for some reason you have it blow up or you put so many miles on your bike that it's time for a rebuild, you can do that on these. You can do upgrades and tunes, and you can change out seals and springs, and you can set it up for exactly how you want it to be. Stuff you can't do with the 2.0. So we're giving 2 points to the 3.0. Our next category is brakes, and this is a huge one because we have a major difference now. The 2.0 came with mountain bike style brakes. They worked fine, but they weren't amazing by any means. It was easy to source brake pads and things because it was a very universal size. Now on the 3.0, we have much larger brakes. You can see these levers are way bigger and they just have a good feel to them. The calipers are also like triple the size, much bigger pads, and these brakes are just so much better. We finally have brakes that can actually handle the power that these bikes are putting out. So we're giving 2 points to the 3.0. All right, guys, I know this video is kind of a long one and a little on the boring side, but hopefully this is useful info for you. We're gonna rip through the next couple categories really quick and then we'll be done. We'll give a little recap and tally up the score at the end. Now we're gonna talk about charging speeds, and usually we're comparing 2 different brands, but in this case, our chargers both charge at 10 amps, and because the 3.0's battery is larger, it does take longer, but because we're charging at the same speeds, we're giving both bikes a draw and 1 point each. This bike takes exactly 4 hours to charge if it's completely dead. This bike takes 5 hours to charge because of the larger battery. Now we have regen braking, and we're gonna give both these bikes a draw because they both have off, level 1 or level 2, and in my opinion, they both feel very similar as far as performance goes. Honestly, not great regen. There's a lot of other E-moto models that have these bikes beat, but it still has regen and it's gonna be a draw. Next up, we have tires. Now, the 2.0 comes with some off-road style tires. They're not the best. The front is really small and narrow and lightweight, which is good for range. The rear, we have a little bit larger tire, very similar tread pattern to the front. But on the 3.0, we have quite a different story. We have more of a dual sport style tire, which is gonna be better for the majority of people that are gonna purchase this bike. And I say it's just as good for the people that want to off-road aggressively. We've been riding this bike pretty heavily off-road. We actually really like these tires. I still like my really knobby aggressive setup on my other bikes, but these do really well and they're great for riding street and off-road, so we are going to give the point to the 3.0 for its stock tires. Our next category is reliability, and we're going to give both these bikes a point because I have no reason otherwise. Both these bikes have been very reliable. We've owned several 2.0s and really haven't heard of very many issues. There's kind of going to be issues with any bike model to a certain extent, but these bikes have been great and we're going to give them both a point. Our next category is going to be ergonomics and feel of the bike. This is going to be a little bit more of personal preference. I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'3". The 2.0 has a lower bar stem setup than the 3.0 does. This is an upgraded bar, but this setup is at least an inch higher than the 2.0, and that makes a big difference for most people. So that is going to help push this bike over the top. The other big difference that we have is this bike has 19-inch wheels front and back. This bike has a 19-inch wheel in the front and an 18 in the back. And this is great in stock form. I think it lowers the back end down slightly, which I think improves the geometry and makes the bike feel really, really, really nice to ride, totally stock. That does limit us in a way. There's not as many upgraded tires available in the 18 size, but nonetheless, this bike does feel better right out of the box with the taller bars, a little bit better geometry, things like that. So it's gonna get the point. Well guys, as you can see, the 3.0 absolutely crushed this comparison, and it's amazing that E-Ride can keep putting so many upgrades in a bike that at the end of the day only costs slightly more than the previous model. Now that this bike has been price dropped, it is more of a comparison, and at the end of the day, if you are looking to purchase either of these bikes and maybe you only have enough to spend on a 2.0, you're still gonna have an awesome bike and have a ton of fun out riding it. Those of you that want to spend the money on the 3.0, I highly recommend it. It is a fantastic bike, and it's going to be great for the majority of you guys that are watching this video. There are more expensive and more powerful models above this, but you don't necessarily need that. This is kind of my go-to bike right now. I put my riser bar on it, I put my upgraded headlight because I love to ride at night, and that's about it. That's really all the upgrades that I think the bike needs, and it is an absolute ripper with 16 kilowatts. Huge shout out to E-Ride for continuing to push the envelope. It's awesome how quickly they are adapting and innovating and pumping out